Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
In life, we have a lot of different diseases or illnesses that we sometimes have to deal with loved ones, family members, or otherwise. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. And we're going to be talking this time around with Carlen Maddux. And the topic is, what is the hidden toll of Alzheimer's on families? Now, Carlen is a retired journalist, but he's also an author of a book entitled A Path Revealed. Welcome, Carlen.
Thank you, Noreen. It's good to be here and talking with you and talking with your audience. I hope that it's a meaningful conversation all the way around for us.
So before we get into the conversation itself, tell us a little bit about your book. What is your book about, A Path Revealed?
The book Path Revealed was written after my wife died in 2014. Our family and she lived with Alzheimer's for 17 years. The focus is not Alzheimer's. It's not a caregiver's guidebook. Okay. Alzheimer's is the context of the book. The focus is the journey, the odyssey that our family went through as we lived with these volatile symptoms day in and day out. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Now, this podcast is helping people have better relationships. Now, on a personal level, before my father died in 2010, he had traces of Alzheimer's. And one of the most painful things for me, Carlen, and I'm sure you more than likely would have experienced this because you said you had to, live it for 17 years. I remember one day he literally, he looked through me and didn't even recognize me. No, that was very painful. Let's backtrack a bit. When you first heard or first realized that your wife had Alzheimer's, what happened for you on a personal level?
Well, on a personal level, this was in 1997, September of 1997, that she went through some testing and then diagnosed, and then we heard the results 3 weeks later. Martha had just turned 50, and the doctor said that she had early onset Alzheimer's. And early onset is folks who are diagnosed with this under the age of 65.
Okay.
I had not even heard of Alzheimer's, or if I had not paid any attention to it. I was 52. Our children, 2 children were in college. 1 child was still in high school. And when we got this news, almost immediately, Noreen, our world was not turned upside down. It imploded before us.
Oh.
It was like we were thrown out of a plane 10,000 feet up with nothing to hold on to but ourselves. We didn't know what to do, where to go, whatever. So when we got home after the news from the doctor, Martha and I had a long cry. And then the first thing Martha told me, and she looked at me straight in the eye and pointed her fingers at me and said, "Carlen, I do not want to tell a soul. I do not want to tell our children. I do not want to tell my parents. I don't want to tell my brothers, and I don't want to tell our friends." And I took a big gulp. I didn't know quite how to react to that because family and friends had been seeing something going on with Martha. They just didn't know what was going on, just as we had been seeing for about a year in advance, something happening there. So that was the first thing. Let me also back up to the doctor's office when we were told. When Martha went in early September to get the diagnosis, to get tested, I went in with her, and we really liked the neurologist. He was compassionate, empathetic, but very knowledgeable, and we went through a series of tests. And so when we came back to get the results 3 weeks later, he he had been called out on an emergency call. And so we were left to talk to an associate of his. And this associate could have passed for Dr. Spock on Star Trek. He was cold, he was cerebral, he was distant, and he was sitting behind a big desk and just said, "I'm sorry to report to you, but you seem to have early onset Alzheimer's." Well, I tell you what, that's hardly a way to be compassionate. That is not bedside manner. So that threw us off real quick as well. But I was mentioning to you that Martha didn't want to talk to anyone, but there was one person that she did want to talk with, or was willing to talk with, and that was a retired minister who had married us and had been friends with Martha before we got married, by the name of Lacey, and she was willing to talk to him. And so I called him, and he was there the next day. Lacey was a big hawk of a man, 6'4", about 250 pounds, and comes in and sits down across from us. And we didn't have much else to say except, "Lacey, we called you here because Martha's just been diagnosed with having Alzheimer's." And he just slumped in the chair. He had apparently had experience with friends and family himself. And so he pointed to me and said, "Can we swap places?" And he sat next to Martha, put his big arm over her shoulder, and just they cried and we cried, all three of us. And after that, he said, I've sent a lot of my friends to a friend of mine up in Kentucky with the Sisters of Loretta. Her name is Sister Elaine. She's a retreat director there. And she has been very helpful to a lot of folks there. And I would encourage you to go. I don't know what you would get from it, but I suspect it would be very meaningful. And so after he left, we talked and we decided to do that. We went up 3 weeks later. Yes.
What I'm hearing from what you've said so far is that at least initially you had some level of support, emotional support. No, you said your family had to live with it, live through, well, I would not say through it, but live with it for, say, 17 years. What for you then, you say, would be the hidden toll of this disease on your family in particular for that?
There are a lot of stuff that's hidden when you've never been through something like this, Lorraine.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's coming at you. And in the beginning, Martha was still able to talk reasonably well and to communicate, and she was still driving the car. But as things, as you were expressing about your father, you just got caught totally by surprise. Mm-hmm. There are things that happen that just you don't know where it's coming from, and it surprises you. I think of the time that I finally decided. I'd been riding with Martha. She was driving in the car, and she ran through a stop sign. Thankfully, there was no accident or anything. Mm-hmm. And I later said, "Martha, why didn't you stop at that stop sign?" She said, "What stop sign?" And so when we got home, I had to I had to take the keys away from Martha.
Yes.
And I felt like I had betrayed her.
Yeah. I can relate. I remember we had to start hiding the keys from my father so that he couldn't drive. But one of the things that we didn't do that we need to backtrack for a bit, Carlen, is to tell people, just give them a context, what happens when somebody has Alzheimer's. Because somebody will listen or they'll watch it and they're saying, what are they talking about? What happens? Just briefly, just describe what happens when that happens to somebody.
Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. Dementia is sort of the umbrella term.
Okay.
And there are several forms of dementia. Alzheimer's happens to be the big kahuna under that umbrella, and it's manifest in different ways with people. Some people lose their ability to talk early. Some people lose their memory early. Some people just lose their capacity to take care of themselves. But some of the cues, in terms of where we first saw a cue, Martha had been a very confident person, a very confident woman. She had been on the St. Petersburg City Council here in Florida for 6 years in the mid-'80s. And the year before she was diagnosed, she was running for an open seat in the Florida State Legislature. And I thought that campaign, that race was hers to lose. And in July of 1996, the year before her diagnosis, there was a campaign event called Tiger Bay Club here, where all four candidates were seated up in front of this audience that asked sharp questions and dug in deep. And I'd seen Martha in those situations many times, and she handled them just with great skill and ease and the like. On this day, Noreen, she had to ask for every question to be repeated. And when she answered the question, her response was about 10 to 15 degrees off. And it just made no sense to me. And when I got home, I said, Martha, what was going on up there? And she said, what do you mean? I thought everything went fine. And that was a big question mark at that point. And I was sharing that with our children who were away to college as well as at home. And it was just raising questions. And we would begin to see Martha not remember names, miss appointments. And if you're into politics or into civic affairs like that, you don't miss names, forget names and miss appointments. So these were some of the signs, early signs that we were beginning to see here.
Yeah. We're gonna continue the conversation, but we're gonna take a quick break and get a word from our partners. We'll be right back.
I loving you, mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors: Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics, or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-876-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Photography is an art, but more so, photography must come from the heart. Precious moments, priceless times. Take a pic and know it will turn out fine.
BMC Photography JA, beautiful moments captured. Let's go.
Langdo Language Institute was created to meet your language and communication needs. All of our packages were created just for you. We are passionate about language and dedicated to your success. We offer the CSEC English program, the Study Buddy program, the Get Ahead with English program, and the Business Communication program. Contact us at 767-285-0938 or email us at langdolanguage@gmail.com, because the real question is, how can we help you?
Loving you, mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
All right, so we've been talking about Alzheimer's with Carlen Maddux. Now, if you're not sure what that is, it is a disease that can take different forms. It's a form of dementia. So whether it is that people start losing their memory in terms of just basic functions, but I've had to deal with it. So it is a scary disease. So we're going to continue the conversation and just find out a little bit more of what is the hidden toll of Alzheimer's on families. So Carlen, with all that you've said, what for you would be the hidden toll of Alzheimer's on families?
I would tell you the stress that it generated on each of us, and Martha didn't seem well. I take that back. She was very anxious. But the stress, just because there were so many unexpected turns, left and right, up and down, that would be, and I had to deal with it. That was one of the things that I didn't understand about a crisis like this, or almost any major crisis, Noreen. It's not just the physical issues or the physical symptoms. There are emotional and mental and spiritual issues that have got to be dealt with. I had to spend time, as crass as this may sound, I had to spend time forgiving Martha, forgiving her for getting this disease, and I had to spend time forgiving myself for being such an, excuse expressions, being such an ass sometimes. And I was by nature, I had, as you mentioned, I'm a retired journalist, and I had founded a business magazine here in the Bay Area, ran it for about 26 years, and I was a perfectionist by nature. And I just found out that I could not control. Martha and I had most of the problems we had encountered in our marriage, we had been able to resolve and work our way through one way or another. But this was beyond our control. And so there's a lot of insidious things. One of the things that surprised me immediately, that just took a real toll on me, and was Martha was a very confident, outgoing woman. And when we got this diagnosis, her confidence went right through the floor, and it stayed there for a year or two. She became very passive, and she still would be talking and be with friends and the like, but became quite passive. But about 2 years after that, Noreen, after her diagnosis, our sister-in-law named KK came to Martha and said, "Martha, I'm getting into a watercolor painting class. Would you like to join me?" And Martha had never done anything like that. She loved to play tennis, and she loved to swim and dance and sing, but never done anything like this. And she got into that, and her confidence just blossomed back. And what you see behind me is one of her paintings. I call it her self-portrait. And just a lot of her paintings were very colorful and the like. And that just brought her back. And she stayed with this and was engaged with this painting for about 2 to 3 years. And that was a real godsend, if you will.
I believe you basically answered then what I was about to ask, which is how then? You said it was stress. So how then, or what did you do, or what were some of the things that you did in some way to then help to ease this stress? But what I'm sensing is that the fact that she got involved and did something well, I sense she was always a creative based on some things you said that she used to do. But the fact that she started doing this helped in some way to have her, I guess, feel confident again.
Oh
But
yeah.
for you and for the rest of the family, what were some of the things that you did to
Okay.
help you to ease the stress of all of the uncertainty, that would come?
I think one of the most basic things when we went to mention that we went up to Kentucky to visit a Sister Elaine with the Sisters of Loretta in community there. That was a very restful time for us. Okay. It allowed us time to get centered and to ask ourselves a lot of questions and to take a lot of walks and just hold hands and the like. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that Sister Elaine suggested to us, she said, you might want to check out meditation. But that's all she said. And so when I had never been into meditation of any form, neither had Martha. And so when we got back, we came back and talked to our friend Lacey, who had sent us up to Kentucky. And I was surprised when I asked him, I said, Lacey, do you know anything about meditation? He was a Presbyterian minister. Presbyterians don't meditate. And it just, he said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And he pointed us to a Benedictine monk by the name of John Maine. He said he has about the simplest approach and the most authoritative approach that he'd ever come across. And so Martha and I began to meditate once in the morning and once in the evening after I got home from work. And we would sit side by side and hold our hands and I would quietly repeat a word that we had selected. And I don't know how long it was, Noreen, but over time, I could sense Martha's anxiety level going from here to slowly coming on down. And the same thing was happening to me. And it was just sort of a resting, if you will.
Okay. As we're wrapping up, somebody will listen to this and they'll watch it, and it might not be Alzheimer's that they'll have to deal with a family member or a loved one. What then would be your advice to somebody who will have something to deal with? Because for whole life is, we all will have something to deal with. What would be your advice to somebody who will have to deal with the uncertainties that will come along with whatever it is that they will have to deal with it?
That suggestion of learning to meditate in its simplest form is one. Depending on what the issue is, seeing if a person can get into either art as Martha did, or get into music and dance and or sing. One of the best pieces of advice I had as a caregiver was a mentor told me, Carlen, be gentle on yourself. I beat myself up a good bit because I didn't have the answers. I didn't know where to get the answer. There was no place to get the answer. And so I had to learn that I just had to learn to be gentle on myself and talk myself into this. And then in the same time, Noreen, with Martha, I had to learn not to try to correct her when she was making wrong kinds of statements. That not to say, well, Martha, that's not right. We went here that day, not over there. But just to step into her world and say, okay, all right. It was no big deal that that she was making these statements. So those are a couple of things.
Okay.
Another thing I would tell you is I had the stupid notion that I could handle this by myself. And I had to learn the hard way. I mean, it almost broke me that I had to learn the hard way to ask people to help us. And while Martha was still capable of asking friends of hers to go out to lunch with her or to go walking with her or the like, and to give me a break. And this was something that then something happened after our two children got out of college and came back to this area. I didn't ask for this. They approached me and gave me the best gift I ever received. They said, "Daddy, we would like to give you 1 weekend a month off where you can go and do whatever you want to do, and we will take care of mommy." And I said, "Oh, really?" And so I've eventually settled into going to a nearby monastery where I could go up and argue and vent to the orange groves, orange trees up there, and holler at them and go running, jogging and walking and praying and crying and joke around with the brothers once they got out of their long robes. They were comedians, many of them. And so that was the greatest gift. But there were a lot of gifts that came along the way, Marie, but that was the greatest.
Mm-hmm. So what I've heard, and we're about to close, is basically be gentle with yourself and also with others. Get some support, and whenever possible, take some time off and nurture your soul. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Yes, thank you so much for sharing, Carlen.
Yes, you're welcome.
This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly. Until next time.
I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and